Hello YouTube, this is the Dbtgamer Show, episode 186, and today I'm going to review Dead Space Extraction for the PS3 and the Nintendo Wii. So, let's get started. Okay, that's my PS3 so let's start the review. Now, Dead Space Extraction is a pretty good rail shooter. So let's begin with the story of this game. The story for Dead Space Extraction is pretty simple. Basically, in every level, there's a group of people, and these people are on this spaceship, and basically, the way the story works is, it's like one of those old horror movies. In certain levels, you have a certain number of people, and as the story goes along, certain people will get picked off by a necromorph, and certain people won't. It's one of those stories where it's interesting to see who will survive the entire ordeal with the necromorphs and everything. Personally, I thought the story was pretty good. It's kind of interesting to see who survives at the end of the game. It's kind of like a guessing game in that way. Now let's take a look at the main menu. In the main menu you can change your settings, you can watch credits, and then you got two main game modes. You got challenge mode, where there are 10 different challenge levels, and basically all challenge mode is for high scores and for trophies. If you manage to beat the high score on every level in the challenge mode, you'll get 1 trophy per level. Now let's go on to the main meat of the game, the story mode. The story mode has 10 levels. Some of them are easy, some of them are hard. For this review YouTube, I'll be showing footage from Chapter 7. Since I'm here YouTube, let's talk about the weapons. First, start off with the plasma cutter. The plasma cutter is one of my most favourite weapons because it's very reliable and it's very easy to find ammo for. The contact beam. The contact beam is basically the rocket launcher of the Dead Space series. It's a very powerful weapon. The only problem is you do not find that much ammo for it. Pulse rifle. It's your basic machine gun. But this time, the pulse rifle has a little bit more oomph to take care of enemies when the going gets tough. If you press it into secondary fire mode, you can shoot out a small grenade which does quite a bit of damage. Although, there is one thing that sucks about the pulse rifle in Dead Space Extraction. In Dead Space Extraction, the pulse rifle only has 80 bullets in a clip, and that is less than adequate when you want to take down a lot of enemies in a hurry, because you'll find yourself reloading far too often. If the thing had a bigger clip, the gun would be pretty much perfect, but because of the small clip size, even when it's upgraded, the gun can be a little bit irritating at times. Next we'll move on to the Ripper, my favourite gun in the game. The Ripper is awesome. It's basically a remote control circular saw blade which can cut off multiple limbs of multiple enemies. Its secondary fire is not too bad either. It can shoot off a little circular saw blade which can cut off limbs as it flies, but eventually to hit something and fall down. Another thing that's good about it is if you're facing a really big enemy, you can just plough the circular saw blade into their stomach and just basically eventually cut through them and do loads of damage. This works kind of well when you're fighting brutes. The line gun. The line gun is basically the plasma cutter on steroids. It shoots out this massive laser beam which cuts through pretty much anything, and it's just very, very useful. Its secondary fire is not bad either. It shoots out a small landmine which if an enemy touches it, it blows up. And also the landmine has a timer on it, which if the timer reaches its end, it will self-detonate and do a lot of damage to the enemies around it. And also it sends out a small shockwave which knocks enemies back and does minimal damage. So the landmine was pretty useful as well on it. The pistol. The pistol's pretty standard, I suppose. It has 2 modes of fire. It's got the standard fire which shoots out 1 shot, and the burst fire which shoots out 3 shots. It's It's good until you get the pulse rifle, which pretty much takes over from that. The Arctic Welder. It's an okay gun, but I found that tasering necromorphs doesn't really help that much. The Force Gun. One of my most favourite weapons, and also one of Adam's favourite weapons. The Force Gun is a very good gun because its standard fire shoots out a small shockwave which knocks enemies back, which can do decent amount of damage. But its secondary fire is its best attack. It shoots out a small pellet, and when the small pellet hits an enemy, it explodes on impact and does a lot of damage. Also, this small pellet, if you shoot it and it happens to land on the floor, it still explodes and still does a decent amount of damage. So you don't have to worry about accuracy too much because this thing will explode as long as it either hits the floor or the enemy itself. One word of warning though, with the Force Gun, the Force Gun works like a mortar. So a good idea is to aim a little bit higher than the target you're aiming for so that the pellet will actually hit them in the spot you want to hit them. It takes a bit of practice, but once you get it, this thing can be lethal. Now on to the flamethrower. The flamethrower is very, very similar to the pulse rifle. It hasn't got the same amount of range as the pulse rifle, but it has got its own little grenade attachment, which is basically a flame grenade. It's slightly more powerful than the pulse rifle secondary fire, but until you upgrade the flamethrower a lot, you will find yourself not being able to use the flame grenade that much because it costs quite a bit of ammo out of your ammo count. But it is a decent weapon and it's one of my most favourites in the game because it's very easy to find ammo for. They hand out the ammo for the flamethrower like candy. It's really easy to find. It's amazing. Now on to the worst weapon in the game, the Rivet Gun. The Rivet Gun, in my opinion, for most jobs, it's crap. Why is it crap? Well, its standard fire is okay. It's like a very lackluster pistol because its clip size is pathetic. Its secondary fire is a charge shot which does more damage, but because you have to charge it up, it's unreliable. It has got one strength though. It has infinite ammo, so if you run out of ammo and everything else, you can use this thing, but when I play this game, I tend to avoid it like the plague. It has one other function which is pretty useful. Let's say if you're being chased by necromorphs, sometimes in the game's story, the characters will decide to build a barricade, and you'll need to use the Rivet Gun to nail pieces of metal into place so that the necromorphs don't catch you. But other than that, the Rivet Gun is pretty much useless. Anyway, I'm going to pick my weapon loadout, and I'll start off the level. You can only pick 2 weapons at the start of a level. There are 4 difficulty levels to choose from. You got normal, hard, expert, and impossible. So far, I've only beat the game on hard and normal. The game is quite difficult. Right. Whilst this cutscene's going on YouTube, I'm going to cover a number of topics. First, let's start with graphics. The graphics for this game, they're really, really good. I've watched some videos of Dead Space Extraction on Wii on YouTube, and the graphics for the Wii version and the PS3 version, they look very, very similar. The PS3 version looks slightly better, but it's hardly noticeable. So whichever version you pick, you'll get a decent game here, as far as graphics concerned. Multiplayer for this game. The multiplayer for this game is very good. It's 1 or 2 player co-op action in any level you like. It's great to bring a friend along in this game. It increases the fun factor, definitely. Controls for this game. I'll talk more about the controls once I get to play the game after this cutscene. One flaw with the controls is you cannot change... You cannot skip cutscenes, which is kind of irritating. And the thing that's good about this game is the music. The music is very creepy and atmospheric. Right, I think this cutscene's almost on YouTube, so let's talk about controls. In my opinion, the controls for this game are pretty good. Today I am using PlayStation 3 controls. I am not using Move controls, because I don't see the point of buying a Move when I only have one game that requires it. If I get more Move games, I may get a PlayStation Move controller later on. Right, let's start with the controls. Down is Rivet Gun on your D-pad. Left is your first weapon. Up, second weapon. Right, third weapon that you've picked. R button fires. Square button reloads. R2 changes from standard fire to secondary fire, which is very useful. Pause button brings up your pause menu. Select brings up your ammo count and health bar. L2 brings up the circular sword blade, which is pretty useful if you want to knock enemies off if they jump at you. L1 does nothing. Triangle is status to stop enemies so they don't get as fast. It only works for a limited time though. X is kinesis, which can pull objects towards you like ammo and power nodes and logs and other collectibles you may find. Circle does nothing. And that's pretty much it, YouTube. The controls are very simple, very easy to learn. Now, I haven't played with the Move controls, but I'm pretty sure the Move controls are at least half decent. I'm gonna grab this canister and just wait. Come on. Hey, buddy! Catch! Right, that's finished talking about controls, YouTube. Let's talk about gameplay. The gameplay of this game, it's pretty good. It's a very standard rail shooter. The only problem I have with the gameplay is that the game is too short. Each level can be beaten in less than 3/4 of an hour maximum. It may take you longer if you need to do multiple attempts, but most levels can be beaten in less than 3/4 of an hour. There are only 10 levels in the game, and the game has a very short lifespan, which is somewhat disappointing. I've played other rail shooters which have a lot longer lifespan. Example, Resident Evil Dark Side Chronicles, Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles, which I played earlier on this year. Good stuff about this game. Well, the good stuff about this game, I think the story is good. The story is quite gripping because it's interesting to see who's going to get picked off next and who's actually going to survive this ordeal with these freaks. The cutscenes are very good. And some of the things that the characters say are quite interesting. There are some motion controls. If you shake your controller, you can knock enemies off, and if you press the X button, you can pull a quick direct to kick them off you. That's pretty useful. It's also a quick reload. You press reload, then press R as soon as you reach a certain point on the reload bar. You will shall reload faster, which is a very useful mechanic. I switched to flamethrower because these guys are kind of starting to get my nerves. Few flame grenades. The other thing I liked about this game was the gameplay. The gameplay is very fast and furious, and it keeps you on your toes. Another thing I liked about the game were levels. There are 10 levels in the game, and most of them are really good. Also, on your fair like about this game, well, the bosses. Some of the bosses are hard, some of them are easy. Probably the hardest boss is the boss in stage 9. That boss is really annoying because it's this monster that has this tube out of its back, and as you fight the monster, it spits out baby necromorphs, so you've got to fight the necromorphs as well as the boss itself. So it's quite difficult to multitask when you're trying to kill the boss, but you've got to keep out of the necromorphs, else they'll get you as well. That boss took me ages to beat on hard mode. The other boss in the game, the Brute, is quite a difficult one because it takes a very long time to kill. And as well as bosses, the game has sort of endurance rounds. In the final stage of the game, stage 10, where you're waiting for someone to get on the shuttle, you've got to protect the shuttle for a long time, and it's pretty much like an endurance round. And in some ways, that endurance round feels like a boss because you've got so many enemies coming at you, it's very difficult to handle. Other times, this will happen in the game as well, depending on which level you're in. So, the bosses and the endurance rounds, as I call them, were quite challenging, especially in the harder difficulties. Another thing I really liked about the game were the weapons. There's a good variety of weapons, and most of them are very useful. But one of my most favourite things about this game is the collectibles. Throughout the game, you can collect certain things. First things first is the logs. The logs basically help to flesh out the story. And they're quite interesting to read sometimes. Also, there are some audio logs which play some voice acting from people who have died on this ship. They're sometimes quite interesting to listen to. They help to flesh out the story.
My God! Is there someone there? Yes, dear. How badly are you hurt?
And your collectible that's really useful are the power nodes. The power nodes
Are you a doctor?
are used to upgrade your weapons, but the power nodes don't work the same way they work in other Dead Space games. Basically, the way the power nodes work in this game is you pick one up and it upgrades a certain weapon in your inventory.
The creatures are still out there.
And once you pick up that power node is gone. So let's say if you try and go back to the level and find the power node again, you can't. Once you've used a power node, you will not be able to go back and get it again. So, one of the things that you've got to do in this game is look really, really carefully to find power nodes, logs, and ammo. One thing that was really interesting about the game was the alternative paths. Throughout the game, depending on which level you're in, sometimes you're able to take a different path and it'll lead to some goodies like more power nodes, more logs, and usually a nice big pile of ammo, which is always good. Sometimes if you find an alternative path, it feels like you're playing a whole new level. It extends the game's replay value, definitely. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the challenge mode. The challenge mode is pretty good, but it's very, very difficult. The challenge mode, you might want to bring a friend along if you want to have a good chance of beating those high scores. I'm pretty good at this game and I haven't managed to earn any of the high score trophies yet. So the challenge mode is really difficult, I have to say.
Let's go.
In this review, YouTube, I will not be showing off any bosses because the bosses take a really long time to fight, and sometimes when you're fighting a boss, certain plot points of the story are revealed. I don't want to spoil the story for too much for people who haven't played it before. I also apologise for the dark footage. This game's a little bit difficult to record because it's so dark, just like other Dead Space games I've tried to review before.
What is it? Where is it coming from?
Anyway, YouTube, that's all the footage I'm going to show. Now on to my complaints. Okay, now my complaints about Dead Space Extraction. Well, I only have 2 complaints for this game. Complaint number 1, the game is too short. There are only 10 levels to play through in the main story mode. And earlier on this year, when I was playing Resident Evil Darkside Chronicles, that game had a lot of levels. And this game has so few levels, it feels very disappointing. I was very disappointed with the length of this game. My second complaint is there isn't really that much replay value for this game either. Other than going back to collect trophies, that's it. There isn't really that much there to keep you coming back to play more Dead Space Extraction. Other than collecting trophies, there isn't really that much else to do. Anyway, let's rate Dead Space Extraction. I give Dead Space Extraction a 4 out of 5. It's a good rail shooter, but it's a shame it's so short, and it's also a shame that it has very little replay value, other than collecting trophies. So it gets a 4 out of 5. In my next review, YouTube, we'll be grabbing our trainer caps and taking a look at the Pokemon game that made my Pokemon Let's Play possible. Pokemon Stadium. But until then, bye!